every day we have a chance to impact somebody's life. Right? And I firmly believe with the things we're part of and the things we do, we all have to have a purpose that's a lot greater than ourselves. So when we hit things that we don't understand and that brings us a certain level of discomfort and that hurts us and we just can't pull the grips on it, when we have to encounter things like that, we have to step back and we have to figure out, how can I use it? And a lot of times as people, like naturally people are selfish, right? And what I mean by that is they approach situations and they say, what can I extract from this situation and how can it benefit me? But the moment an individual shifts their perspective and shift their mentality and shift their attitude from me to we, that is the moment an individual becomes literally dangerous. Because now an individual is attached to purpose and mission. And when you have an individual that's attached to purpose and mission, it's not too many things that's gonna stop them. You see, my football career ended, but my reason for why I lived my life, it never did. I just had a paralyzed right arm and hand. My mentality wasn't paralyzed. My spirit wasn't paralyzed. My drive wasn't paralyzed. My dedication wasn't, my commitment wasn't, I was the same man. I just had an extra boost of energy for why I lived my life. I wear this as a badge of honor. Every single day, the adversity, the opposition that life sent to break me, I wear it as a badge of honor because I understand every day of my life, I represent something. It's just like every individual in this room, every company, every brand. When people see you, they think something. We've all seen those people, we see them coming, we're like, oh, here come this crybaby. No, they're whining about something. And then we've all seen those people where we say, man, where you been, brother? I've been needing to see you, man. How can we be those type of people in our companies and our families and the things that we're connected to? How can we be those people that's a breath of fresh air, man? How can we be those people that live life with passion and compassion? How can we be those people when we ask people questions, we don't just listen with the intent to reply, but we actually listen with the intent to understand? How can we be those people that understand everybody that comes across our path, they come across our path for a reason. And so when we approach them, we listen, and we share a little bit of love, and we want to leave them a little bit different. Like, I'll never forget, I talked to the guy that I encountered the hit with that left my arm like this, and that changed my life. I'll never forget, I talked to him. He called me, and he played for the University of Air Force, obviously, and he just so happened to be from Atlanta. And he calls me, and I picked up the phone. It was about 1.5 years after my incident happened. I pick up the phone, this guy is crying his eyes out. And he says to me as he's crying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He said, I didn't have a shot at the NFL. He said, you did. He said, I feel as if I messed your life up. And I said to him, thank you. He stopped crying. He said, what do you mean, thank you? I said, I'm saying thank you because if this incident didn't happen, who's to say that I would be the man that I now am? Who's to say that I would be the father that I now? Who's to say that I would have the perspective that I have? Not that my perspective was bad before. Adversity, it's all about perspective. It's never about what we go through. It's how we view what we go through. And when I told him thank you, the reason he didn't understand it, it's not so much about a story, right? We all have stories. Like the ESPN producer told me, he came down to see me in Atlanta and they shot my little special, and he told me, I'm not coming just for the story. Everybody has a story. He said, I'm coming because I can't understand your perspective, and I can't understand how you can be thankful for something that brings a lot of people pain, and they just can't understand. I can't understand how you're thankful for something that a lot of people can't even process, and they will use it as an excuse. And I said, you probably can't understand it because you don't live life the way that I live it. Every single day I wake up, the only thing I need is a breath of fresh air. That's it. I don't need a reward. I don't need a product. The only thing I need is breath in my body. And every single day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to live life for the right reason. And I'm going to live life in the right way. I'm going to live life with passion, with love and compassion. Because when I almost lost my life, that shade went up and it made me realize what life was really about. And at the end of the day, I think we all know it's not about anything superficial or materialistic. We've all experienced that. We've all got that new car, and then 3 days later, it's just a new car. And then we've all done something for a family at Christmas. And why did it feel better when we did something for a family at Christmas than when we did something for ourselves? Because life is attached to growth. And life is attached to service. And what that service is serving something that serves a lot greater purpose than just ourselves. And I'm reminded of a story about two gentlemen, very wealthy, ran companies, very wealthy. They ended up getting terminally ill. They put him in this facility. The guys were in this facility, would come out every single day in the common area. They would have fun, they would do their thing, and they would put him in a room, they would eat, they would drink. And so one of the guys, he asked the nurse, he said, "Hey nurse, can you put me in a room with that guy? I really like him, man. We're having a great time, we're hitting it off." She said, "Sure." She put him in the same room. So she would bring him something, water, something to drink, some food. Every single day they would eat, they would drink. And so one of the guys, he had a bed and it was by the window. And so every single day his buddy on the opposite side would say, "Man, can you tell me what you see out that window when you get the strength to lift yourself up?" He said, "Yeah, cool." So every single day they would eat, they would drink, and he would lift himself up and he would look out of the window and he would say, "Man, I see a beautiful skyline." Say, "Man, I see beautiful flowers, beautiful kids running, playing, beautiful couples walking, holding hands." And this guy on the opposite side would say, "Man, thank you so much. That really helped me. You know, we're about to die. Really helped me." One day, nurse came in the room. Guy with the bed by the window had died. She started prepping him. She's taking him out of the room. And as she's rolling him out, the guy on the opposite side said, "Hey, nurse." He said, "What is it?" He said, "Can you do me a favor?" He said, "Yeah, what is it?" He said, "Whenever you put that guy wherever you got to put him, can you come back and can you please roll my bed by the window? I want the opportunity to lift up, look out of that window and see what he used to tell me about that really helped me in my situation." She said, "Sure." Next day she came in, brought him some water, brought him some food. He ate, he drank his water. He lifted himself up. He looked out of the window and the only thing he saw was a brick wall. He started yelling, screaming, "Nurse, nurse, get in here." Nurse came running. She said, "What is it?" He said, "Why is there a brick wall there?" He said, "You know, my buddy used to tell me about this beautiful skyline, beautiful flowers, you know, beautiful couples walking, holding hands, beautiful kids playing." He said, "Can we please get that wall removed?" He wanted the whole wall removed. The nurse responded and she said, "You didn't know?" He said, "No what?" She said, "You really didn't know?" He said, "No, no what?" She said, "He was blind." She said, "He couldn't have seen that even if he wanted to." She said, "You didn't know." Every day he did that because he knew it brought you joy. Every day he did that because he knew it brought you peace. Every day he did that because he knew it helped you with your situation. Every day he was about to die himself, but here you had a blind guy that lifted himself up, looked out of a window and painted a picture that he couldn't even see simply because he knew it served as a blessing to his counterparts. And so as I leave you today, I have to pose the question, why do you really do what you do and where is it taking you? Like, what's the GPS that's on the end of our decisions and our choices? Like, where is it really taking us? Because at the end of the day in life, it's only two things that matter. And it's not about the biggest car, it's not about the biggest house, it's not about the bank account. It's only two things that matter. It's about who we become in life, and it's about what we give back to life. And I don't know about you, but every single day I'm blessed to be above ground. I'm gonna make my time count, and I'm gonna give something valuable back to life. Please don't be the people in this world that become a public success, but they're private failures.
The fear of failure was a big one in the beginning. Because what happened to me was I was 27 years old and I was like miserable. And, you know, I just kept trying to figure out what my life was for. You know, because I discovered something that the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you discover why. And at 27, I just hadn't figured out the why. And I walked into a comedy club October 8th, 1985. First time ever in a comedy club. Didn't even know comedy club existed. I actually went there on a dare. A girl dared me to go to this comedy club because she knew I was funny. I won amateur night that night, October 8th, 1985. I went to work the next day and quit my job. I won $50 and I went to work and quit my job. The day I quit, my boss, as I put my box on his desk and told him I was leaving to be a comedian, he talked me right out of it. He said, "Steve, you're not even funny." He said, "I've never heard you say anything funny since you've worked here. I've been selling insurance for 2 years." He said, "Are you kidding me? You've got a family. You put that stuff back on your desk and I'll give you your job back. But don't you ever come in here again with something ridiculous. You're gonna be a comedian." I took all my back to my desk and put that back on my desk. Dude named Russell Middlebrooks came up to me and said, "Hey, Harv, I thought you was quitting today, man." I said, "Nah, I talked to Tom and he told me I wasn't funny." He said, "He don't know you." He said, "Dog, you the funniest dude I know." He said, "Man, see," and then he looked at me, he was so hurt. He said, "Damn, dog, I told everybody you was leaving today." He said, man, I can't believe you letting that tell you what to do. And he swole me back up because I had been deflated. And I took that box right back in and I said, Tom, hey man, I'm really funny, I'm gonna make it. He said, I'll tell you what, you leave out this door, don't ever come back in here again. So I tried to shake his hand. I said, I'm not shaking your hand. I said, you're making a huge mistake leaving your family out like this. He was right, I became homeless. And I made a big mistake. I became homeless, I lived in a car for 3 years. Probably about 20 years after that, he was at a show. And he said, I came to the show, I saw this Steve Harvey. He said, I couldn't believe it was you. He was backstage, he said, oh my God, I always knew you were gonna make it. Me and that dude, man. But overcoming that was my biggest. And none of my family believed in me. The only family member I had that thought it was a good idea was my father. Because my father was really funny. He just grew up in a time for blacks that was very different. And he just said, son, if you think you can make it, get on out there and get discovered. My father was born in 1914. It wasn't good. My grandfather was a slave. My grandfather was born into slavery. My grandfather was a slave till he was 12. So my background of people becoming successful was like, and my dad was the only one who believed in me. Everybody else told me no. Gratitude is one of the most overlooked and key principles to your success. If your goal is to be a millionaire and you start out making $20,000 a year and then God gets you to 50, but you mad because you ain't a millionaire. Well, hold up, man. Do you not remember that just a minute ago you didn't have but 20? So you got to show gratitude for the 50. Then somehow, by the grace of God, you get to 150. It's people making 150 who used to be dead broke, mad because they not a millionaire. Hold up, partner. Do you remember when you was just making the 50? Now you done triple that, and you got to understand that there's joy in the journey. So if you don't show the proper amount of gratitude, you're never gonna be happy, you're never gonna be content, and after a while, man, God gonna get tired of you. It's like if somebody come over your house and borrow a cup of sugar every day. Every day somebody come to your house and ask you for a cup of sugar, and you give it to them, and they walk away and don't ever say thank you. How many times did this cat come to your house and get this sugar without saying thank you to you before you as a human being go, yo, my man, you come here every day, and I give you this cup of sugar. You ain't said thank you one time. Don't come by here no more. But through God's grace and mercy, he allowed us to keep coming back. But suppose you were grateful though. Maybe one time you go to God and ask for another 150 and he give you 500 because you didn't show gratitude. Maybe sometimes when the guy that kept coming by your house asking for the cup of sugar, if he would show gratitude, maybe you go, hey man, here go a 5-pound sack of sugar. That way you ain't got to come back tomorrow. But if you never show the gratitude, you never become the recipient of the grace. And the grace is what you need on top of that helps you get to the next level and take you place. My wife asked me the other day, because I just turned 65, right? And I was talking to my wife and I said, baby, I was just kind of got a little throwed off a little bit, because even I'm human, you know, I got a little throwed off. I said, baby, I just turned 65 and I really was wanting a little bit more to be popped off by now. She said, wait a minute, hold up, Steve. Wait a minute, hold up. When you was 30, where did you see yourself at 65? I said, well, I ain't see this. She said, exactly. She said, so you can want all you want, but you need to go outside and just drive around and go get in some of your cars and see how you fly and just take a look around, and I think you'll be all right. And I went on and sat down. Albert Einstein had a quote. He said, imagination is everything. It's the preview to life's coming attractions. So whatever is in your imagination, God places the life he has for you in your imagination, because your imagination is God showing you a preview of a coming attraction he has for you. Your imagination is real. Your imagination is not hocus pocus. If you keep imagining something, that's your Heavenly Father saying, hey, this is what I have for you. And you have to attend to that. Don't play your imagination off, because your imagination is a preview of a coming attraction God has for you. So if you keep imagining a business, you got to go for it. If you keep imagining a big promotion, you got to go for it. If you keep imagining a second home, you should go for it. If you keep imagining being rich one day, you should go for it. Whatever's in your imagination, it's not there by accident. It's there because that's how he shows you what he has for you. The problem is when you have stuff in your imagination, you have these big dreams, your problem is you tell it to the wrong people. If you want to kill a big dream, tell it to a small-minded person. And the reason people don't believe in your dreams is because God didn't show it to them. He showed it to you. They don't have to see it. Nobody in my family thought I should quit my job to pursue comedy. Not a single one of them except my father. Oh, everybody thought I was the biggest fool in the world, but they didn't see what I saw. I had been praying that God would show me what I was going to do with my life, because up to 27, I had no idea. When I won that comedy competition, I said, this is it. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I went in there and told it to them, you a fool. I'm a fool. No, I'm not a fool. I was just foolish enough to believe in my imagination. And I asked God, I just kept praying, God, show me, show me. So all through homelessness and all of that, God just kept talking to me. Hang in there. When it looked like I wasn't gonna make it, he just said, hang in there. I got something for you. And what God had for me was a life that was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. But it starts with your imagination. So if you think you ought to have a business, if I was you, I would go for it. Why not? What else you gonna do? What, you gonna keep working a job you don't like? What, you gonna be nothing? What? What?
The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it. When you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it. There are things that when you, in my situation, when you live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, and you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation. Richard Wright said it best. He said, the impulse to dream has slowly been beaten out of me through the experiences of life. The book called Learned Optimism, Seligman talk about the fact that between ages 0 and 5, we determine what's available to us and what's not available to us. And so that was a defining moment. I knew there are certain things I could not do, certain places I could not go. And so now you have to operate within the constraints of the dominant society and the things that they've created for you. And it's a challenge to see yourself beyond that and to work to get outside of that, even after those laws have changed, because that has become so much a part of you. You unconsciously operate within the parameters of what has been put in place. Like you're driving on the expressway, the 405, and you'll get off on an exit that you weren't going in that direction, but you unconsciously did it because you've done it so many times. Many people, because they're not making a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to think outside of what life has thrown at them, they end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. Einstein said that thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve. And so through relationships, through reading, through studies, through goals and dreams beyond your comfort zone, it allows you to begin to live out of your imagination as opposed to out of your history. Disney said, the imagination is a preview of what's to come. And so as a kid, I dreamed a lot about taking care of my mother. I used to go with her to work, to clean homes, and she kept her children, and she cooked for these wealthy families. My mother could bake a sweet potato pie so good you couldn't eat it with your shoes on. You had to take your shoes off so you could wiggle your toes. And I used to look at these big, beautiful mansions and said, Mama, what is it, Leslie? When I become a man, I'm gonna buy you a big, beautiful home just like this. Oh, you don't have to do this. I said, I know, but you didn't have to adopt us either. And you did. And so I'm here with you because of two women. One gave me life, the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And because of her example and my love for her and the passion that I felt in my heart, I've got to do something to make her proud. I've got to do something to put myself in position to be able to take care of her. That drove me. Nietzsche said, if you know the why for living, you can endure almost anyhow. A gentleman who dramatically transformed my life, I was a junior at Booker T. Washington High School in Miami, Florida, and I went in his class looking for another friend, and he said, go to the board and work this problem out for me. I said, sir, I can't do that. He said, why not? I said, I'm not one of your students. He said, do it anyhow. And the other kids started laughing, saying, he's Leslie, he's DT. And he said, what's DT? His brother is smart, but he's the dumb twin. And I said, I am, sir. And he came from behind his desk and he pointed at me, he said, don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And he taught me three things. He said, if you want to become successful in life, young man, he said, number one, you got to change your mindset. He said, you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. Number two, practice OQP, only quality people. You earn within $2,000 to $3,000 of your closest friends. I found that out. I left all my broke friends. I said, y'all got to go. And the third thing he said, develop your communication skills, because once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. He said, those are three major things that you want to work on that will liberate you from living in Liberty City, living in poverty and Overtown. It will help to escape out of where you are right now, because I see you watching me and I know you want more. I can see the hunger in your eyes. I believe that all of us are born unique, but most of us die copies. You got to find out what is it that turns you on, what resonates with you. One of the things that I realized and what allowed me to become successful as a speaker, the speaking industry has been hijacked by people who speak to sell, and it's okay to do that and make money. I speak to change lives because somebody spoke and changed my life. So this is my passion. This is my drive. This is something that I feel in my heart. And so the key to that hunger-driven life is a heart-centered life. I didn't do what I'm doing for years because of my programming, because of the culture in which I was raised in. I would see other people with degrees and PhDs and MBAs and credentials I don't have, and I convinced myself I couldn't do it. But Mr. Washington, on that day, we became friends, and he taught me not only someone's opinion of you does not have to determine your reality. He said that you have to work on yourself and you have to have an unstoppable attitude, and no excuse is acceptable, and you've got to make it a priority, a non-negotiable in your life, and hold a constant vision of what it is you want to achieve. See it accomplished and go all out. Find a way to win. In spite of the setbacks, in spite of the disappointments, in spite of your failures. I tell people when I'm giving presentations, you will fail your way to success. Life knocks you down, try and land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. Those experiences of going after goals that's beyond your comfort zone and having relationships that will challenge you and surrounding yourself with coaches and mentors who can take you to a place within yourself that you can't go by yourself because you can't read the label when you're locked in the box. And so those experiences, they challenge you to go to that next level and continue to move forward in your life, doing new and exciting things that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has entered the heart of mankind what God has in store for you when you live a heart-centered life, deciding that you're going to live a life that will outlive you. You're going to live a life that counts, a life that will build a legacy and change the planet. You know, Horace Mann said, we should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind. And so my goal is to make a major contribution to humankind. Every day when I get up, my mindset is, what is it that I can do to touch and impact somebody's life today? Sidney Poitier wrote a book called The Measure of a Man. And he said, when you go for a walk with someone, something happens without being spoken. He said, either you adjust to their pace or they adjust to your pace. Whose pace have you adjusted to? And so there are things that we pick up and we think that they're our choices, but they're the choices that we've been programmed by life to do. When we leave our homes in the morning, we're bombarded with over 6,000 advertising hits through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram, through television, through our phones and through our communities, and through the computers. And so all of these things are impacting us every day. So if you don't have a program for your mind, then your mind is going to be programmed and you'll find yourself doing things that you did not know and that they affected you, that they, through marketing techniques and strategies, that they will create a thirst within you. I came up in an era that said if you built the best mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door. But if you know marketing, people will sleep outside your store to buy a telephone they've never touched or seen. But because of the marketing, they said, I got to have that. One of the books I enjoy is by my mentor, Mike Williams. He saw this Les Brown before I saw him. I was a disc jockey at WVKO radio station in Columbus, Ohio. And he said, hey, Brownie. I said, yes. He said, you know why you go see Robert Schuller and Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar? I said, because I like their message. He says, no. He said, that's who you are, man. You can do that. And he said, you know why Bert Charles gives you so much hell here? I said, well, he just doesn't like me? No, because you've outgrown this place. There's something else for you to do. You can do what those guys do. But at that time, I was suffering from possibility blindness. I couldn't see it. I had the conversation in my head of being labeled educable mentally retarded and failing twice in school. But over the years, experiences continue to peel away, and you wax a floor. You don't put wax on the existing floor. You strip it first. And so over the years, the seminars, the workshops, the examples, the things that I observed begin to peel away and penetrate and connect with that part of myself that says, I can do this, I can do more, and I deserve more. And so I would teach my kids that you have to transform your mindset. You have to continuously upgrade your relationships. My youngest son, John Leslie, poses a question. He said, when you have goals and dreams you want to achieve, he said, ask yourself the question, who should I count on and who should I count out? And so many people never achieve their goals because they have too many toxic, negative, energy-draining people in their lives. And you have to have goals outside of your comfort zone that will challenge you, because in order to do something you've never done, you've got to become someone you've never been. And you got to have a mentor who's experienced, who's been there, done that. And as a result of that relationship, because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. Muhammad Ali said, I'm the greatest, but he never won a championship without Angelo Dundee. money. And Michael Jordan never won a championship without Phil Jackson. So you've got to have someone that can see something in you that you can't see, that can take you to a place within yourself that you can't go by yourself. So I would teach them the value of having a life coach, that life is an adventure and it's going to be a challenge, and get ready because you're going to fail your way to success. You're going to get slapped around by life. And don't spend time complaining about it and telling everybody. 80% don't care. Another one that's a little known book that people don't talk about is by Robert Collier, called Secret of the Ages. That's a book that really inspired me, that Mr. Washington gave me, Secret of the Ages. The secret of the age is that you have the power to do more than you can ever begin to imagine. Don't underestimate yourself. You don't know enough about yourself to become a cynic. And so you've got to challenge yourself to access that power that you have within you. You're more than a conqueror. And the other one is a little small book that I don't care how many times I read it, I always get something of value. James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, and they have a female version of it, As a Woman Thinketh. Those are books that I enjoy very much. His focus on the value of not only just changing your mind, but having a program to do maintenance work on your mind, because those negative thoughts will come back with a vengeance. Once you stop the ritual of whatever you are doing, that will hold those negative thoughts in check. Negative thoughts are like weeds. You can't kill weeds. You can hold them down for a minute, but once you stop doing the things to overpower those negative thoughts, because we've been taught to dislike ourselves. MIT did this study, and somebody else has to come along and say, don't pay any attention. You can do it 17 times to neutralize that one time. And so when we think about his work, it's focused on how to begin to get under those conscious thoughts and impact that subconscious mind to create an ongoing process of renewing how we see ourselves. 4 steps to greatness, and it's a cyclic process. 1, self-awareness, where you constantly, every day when I get up, I read. I get up and there's a scripture I love, because all things work together for good for those who love God and for those who are called according to His purpose. And so I meditate on that, and I visualize myself doing some good stuff in the planet. The next step is not only self-awareness, but the next thing is self-approval, that you have to have a program that will increase your sense of self, reading, doing good work, volunteering, constantly looking for ways in which you can improve all the dimensions of your life, being a better father, being a better husband, a wife, or being a better person, because we want to have a holistic approach to life. Because if your achievements outgrow your sense of self, you will unconsciously engage in self-destructive behavior. And we're witnessing that now on a national level. Whenever I go after a goal, even though I don't have the money, even though I don't have the resources, even though I don't have the connections, I remember sending one of my messages to Gunther Rinker, who had a commercial for Tony Robbins' Personal Power every 30 minutes on television. So I sent them one of my motivational cassette tapes at that time. And they sent me a letter back, said, you got an inspiring story, but you're black. And I wrote back and said, thank you for telling me. I never would have known that had you not reminded me. At the end of it, I wrote, I'll see you from the top. and so I used to sell television sets, and I would knock sometimes 10:30 at night, and hi, would you like to buy a nice working television set? No money down? Do you know what time it is? Yes, I do. I'm going to buy groceries for our family. Somebody's going to buy a nice working television set from me tonight, and it might as well be you. And they say, come on in here, fool, it better be a good one. So I learned how to be unstoppable. They were getting money just to have a good time, to party on the weekend. I was earning money so that we could eat. I've got to do this. I made a commitment. I'm going to make enough money to put groceries on our table. You make the horse thirsty by finding out what is it that will create that thirst. One of the advantages that I had coming into the speaking industry, Mike Williams, my mentor, said, Brownie, craft and create a story out of your experiences and things you've observed and learned to begin to allow them to see a vision of themselves differently than what they had when you came in. Orchestrate an experience. That experience is major. If information could change people, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy.
What is the specific impact that you want to have on the world?
I aspire to inspire until I expire.
You want someone, I think, in a relationship that you can spar with. And it's partly because you have hard problems to solve. And if the person that you're with isn't willing to put forward their opinion, then you only have half the cognitive power that you would otherwise have. You know, and hopefully you find someone who's interestingly different from you, like not so different that you can't communicate, and you have to be careful of that, but interestingly different, and then hopefully they have the ability and the will to express their opinion. Then your interest stays heightened, and there has to be that tension in a relationship. You know, people think, well, I want to get along perfectly with my partner. It's like, no, you probably don't. You just get bored, and then you go looking for trouble. And so you want a little bit of trouble in the relationship, and a little bit of mystery, and a little bit of combativeness, and the ability to exchange opinions forthrightly. And I trust her, which is a huge element. I mean, when we finally did decide to get together permanently, we were both in our later 20s, and you know, one of the things that I had learned by that point and insisted to her about was that we had to tell each other the truth. And she took to that wholeheartedly, you know, and for better and for worse, because truths can be harsh. Well, you know, if I tell my wife that she looks good in an outfit, she knows that I mean it. Sometimes, you know, she'll say, you know, do you like this? And I'll tell her that I don't. You know, I actually like her sense of style a lot, so it turns out that 90% of the time it's pretty easy for me to say, look, I think you look great, and mean it. And, you know, she's a fairly harsh standard bearer too. Like she's insisted that I stay in whatever reasonable physical shape I happen to be in. You know, that was something that she's very demanding of. And I would say that it's the same from my side. And we've been good at negotiating, which is, you know, what do you want from a partner fundamentally? What do you want and need? I mean, the first thing is that, well, hopefully, you, like I said, you're blessed with the fact that you find each other attractive. And I think it's very difficult for the relationship to begin or proceed or sustain itself without that. But having that, then what do you want? Well, you want someone that you can trust. You want someone that you can build a view of the future with. And you want someone that you can negotiate with. And that's very hard to negotiate with people because they have to tell you what they think. They have to know what they want or figure it out. They have to tell you what they want. They have to be satisfied when they get what they want, which is also a very difficult thing to manage. And you have to continually update that because your life goes through different stages. All romantic interaction should be spontaneous. It's like, well, if that's your theory, then you might as well just give up right now if you're going to get married, because that, like, the only reason you can think that is because you don't have enough responsibility to make romantic entanglement virtually impossible. And what happens when you're married, especially when you have little kids, is that, and you both have a job, let's say, is you're so busy that the probability that you're going to find time for spontaneous mutual interaction decreases to zero. And so if that's what you're hoping for, then you're never going to have it. And so what you have to do is you have to make time for each other. And, you know, if you're dating, when you're establishing a relationship, Well, you put some effort into it, you decide that you're going to go out for dinner and you dress up to some degree and, you try to present yourself to each other in some halfway mutually acceptable manner. And you hope that there's going to be a positive consequence of that you're going to find each other attractive. But then people somehow think that once they're married that the same amount of effort isn't necessary, and that's wrong. I would say more effort is necessary on the same front, and you have to think it through. It's like, if you don't want to be bitter about the intimate element of your relationship, how much time do you have to spend together each week? And my rule of thumb, sort of derived from clinical observations, is that you need to spend 90 minutes a week with your partner talking. And that means you're telling each other about your life and staying in touch, so that you each know what the other is up to. And you're discussing what needs to be done to keep the household running smoothly. And you're laying out some mutually acceptable vision of how the next week or the next months are going to go together, right? So that keeps your narratives locked together like the strands in a rope. You need that for 90 minutes or you drift apart. And you need to spend intimate time together at least once a week, and probably more like twice. And that has to be negotiated. And if you don't negotiate it, and if you don't make it a priority, then it won't happen in all likelihood. And then you don't have it, and that's a catastrophe, because there's not that many things in life that are, intrinsically, what would you say, engaging and meaningful and pleasurable and also bonding, all of that. And if you let that go, then, part of you dies and part of the relationship dies, and then there's always the possibility of becoming attracted by alternative entanglements, which you would do if you had any spirit left, right? I mean, that's the thing, is if your relationship at home is entirely unsatisfying sexually, what are you supposed to do with that? Nothing? Are you supposed to just bear it? I mean, in one way the answer is yes, because it's your marriage, but another way is, that's all the fight you've got in you? You're going to just let the erotic element of your life die and accept everything that goes along with that because you're not willing to cause a bit of trouble to ensure that it's maintained? And and we're not very good at thinking these things through consciously. And people are bad at negotiating, period, as far as I can tell, but they're particularly bad at negotiating things that are deeply private. How much do you want your partner to know about you anyways? It takes a lot of trust to have a real conversation about what you need and want.
We've got a hypothesis that we're still working out that's supported to some degree by the relevant literature. So imagine that you're looking for a stable partner, right? So you might think, what do you want in a stable partner? And at least in principle, one of the things you don't want is too much mismatch between you and that person on the 5 fundamental dimensions. So for example, if you're really extroverted and you have a really introverted partner, you're going to engage in continual conflict about how much social activity the two of you should subject yourself to. And it's very, very difficult for people who widely differ on those dimensions to come to consensus, because it's not just a matter of opinion, right? It's really a matter of, if you're looking at extremes, of really different types of people. And the thing about introverts is they just don't enjoy large-scale social interaction that much. One-on-one they're often fine, but in a group they don't like that, and it tires them out. Whereas a real extrovert, it's like you isolate them and they just wither on the vine, because a huge part of what actually motivates them in a positive way is tangled up with social interaction. And so if you're an agreeable person and you have a particularly disagreeable partner, you're also going to run into problems, because the agreeable person will say whatever you want, whenever, and the disagreeable person will say, I'd like to know what the hell you want for a change, and be much more harsh and much more demanding in the situation. And the agreeable person is going to find the disagreeable person harsh and unpleasant, and the disagreeable person is going to find the agreeable person wishy-washy and unable to stand up for themselves. And again, that's actually one of the primary sources of tension between men and women, because women tend to be higher in agreeableness than men. It's about half a standard deviation, which is quite a large difference by psychological standards. And so what that means fundamentally, just so you have some sense of how large a an effect that is that if you have a group of men and women and you pick out random pairs, the woman is going to be more agreeable than the man 60% of the time. So that's not an overwhelming proportion, but it's reliable, and it's quite large by psychological standards. So there's the problem with agreeableness. With conscientiousness, well, if you're conscientious, you're industrious and orderly. And orderly people seem to be sensitive to disgust. We've had a hard time specifying exactly what makes industrious people industrious, because it's hard to come up with an animal model for that sort of thing, and there's no theoretical model. But our latest idea is that industrious people find it unpleasant and unsettling to not be doing something. So it isn't so much that industriousness makes them happy or fills them with positive emotion. That would be more extroversion, right? Because extroversion is the positive emotion dimension. It's that industrious people can't stand sitting around doing nothing. And you know, this is speculation, but you know, human beings are obviously always engaged in the exchange of labor, especially the reciprocal exchange of labor. And you can imagine that in a community where everyone knows everyone, the people who work hard are going to be pretty irritated on a fairly chronic basis with the people who are completely unproductive. And my suspicions are that plenty of people who were completely unproductive in the history of the evolution of our species were wiped out by people who were unhappy with their lack of productivity. And so I think, generally speaking, human beings have this sense of ethical obligation with regards to one another to share labor. And people who are conscientious really, really feel that. So they feel bad if they're not busily working on something that's productive all the time. And so the advantage to being with someone conscientious is, well, they're going to work like mad, but the disadvantage is they're going to work like mad. So, you know, if you're looking for a partner that you want to relax with or have fun with, or who isn't uptight, then a conscientious person is probably not a very good choice. On the other hand, if you're a conscientious person and you're living with someone who's really unconscientious, that's good because they might be able to help you relax, but you're not going to be happy with them because they don't work nearly as hard as you do. But even worse, on the orderly dimension, you know, some of you have had roommates and maybe you're more orderly than your roommate. What does it mean? It means you're annoyed by mess before they are. And you don't have to be annoyed by mess much before your less orderly roommate for you to be the one that's always running around picking things up. And so actually one of the things that's emerged from the psychometric analysis is that women are slightly more orderly than men. And I suspect that has something to do with the, what would you call it, inequitable distribution of housework. Because even if imagine that your proclivity is to be triggered by disorder 25 seconds before your partner's. Well, you're going to end up, it doesn't take much difference for you to be the one that's always concerned about the mess first. So anyways, and so if you're a really orderly person and you live with a disorderly person, well, good luck getting along with them. They're going to regard you as like uptight and over concerned with details and, well, and unwilling to relax, that's for sure. And they're going to regard you as, well, just a bloody mess. And how can anyone possibly live with someone like you? So another reason why it's useful to understand your personality is because I think it gives you a better crack at finding someone that you can actually live with over the long run. And we don't know what the optimal, I don't think you want to live with someone who's exactly like you, because then both of you have the same strengths and weaknesses, and there's a bit of a problem there, right? Because maybe an agreeable person can use a bit of a disagreeable person around them to balance each other out, and vice versa, right? So we don't understand the optimal balance for long-term thriving in a relationship, but I think we do understand the fact that if you're too different in your traits, where you're different is going to constitute a chronic source of conflict.
You ever seen a flea? Let me teach you something. How many of you have a dog? How many of you have ever had a dog that had a flea on him? That's everybody. One of the smallest insects, really small, one of the smallest insects. But for his height and size, and flea has the highest vertical leap in nature for an insect. A flea can jump, has a 36-inch vertical. A flea, man, can come 36 inches off the ground. His vertical is 36. The average person can't do that. But a flea can jump 36 inches off the ground. If you capture the flea and you put him in a mayonnaise jar and you put the lid on it, the flea know one thing: I got a 36-inch vertical. So here he go. He start jumping, but he gonna hit himself on that lid. because he got that lid on it. But after a while, after getting knocked down so many times, the flea makes an adjustment. So now the flea only jumps just to where he don't get knocked back down. He got 36 vertical, but since this lid is on, his environment got him now jumping nowhere near what he can. Capture some more fleas and put them in there. They got 36 verticals, but then they start jumping. They find out they keep getting knocked down. They start doing what the other fleas is doing. Next thing you know, got a jar full of fleas in there, ain't even using a 36-inch vertical because they got a lid on the jar. Them fleas have babies. Them babies is born into the conditions of the environment. So now guess what? The flea is born with a 36-inch vertical, but because he see his mommy and daddy and all his cousins and friends jumping just barely to the roof, you know what he do? He duplicates that behavior. The flea never reaches his potential. Until you take the top off of your mayonnaise jar, you're gonna duplicate your surroundings. If you take an oak tree seed and you put it in a 2-foot pot, that seed will never become the oak tree that oak trees are capable of becoming because it's gonna get stifled by the 2-foot pot. Now check this out, ain't nothing wrong with the seed. The seed just fell prey to the environment. You are a seed from God. God made you in his likeness. He big, he vast. Don't you allow your environment to dictate the oak tree that you become. Because ain't nothing wrong with your seed. All of y'all got this wonderful gift that he gave you at birth. All y'all got one, you better believe that now. Don't die with this gift and don't never use it. All of y'all got this wonderful gift, but you gotta use it. Take your seed, take your gift. Get away from these people that's in your life that ain't doing nothing. Get away from people in your life that's hating. Get away from your family members that ain't ever opened a business. Get away from your family members that ain't ever followed their dream. Get away from your family members ain't never been nowhere but to the family reunion. Ain't never been to a beach. Get away from them. Get away from them. I had to do it. When I told everybody I was getting into comedy, man, oh Lord have mercy. You can't get into comedy. You ain't even funny. How you gonna make money telling jokes? Now, in the beginning, it looked like they was right, but I never gave up. Everything you want from God, it has to be written. It's a principle of success. It's a law. It's not a theory that Oprah came up with for 30 years telling you about vision board. Oprah didn't come up with this. You know, Michelle Obama didn't come up. This is nothing Steve Harvey came up with. If you have something in your life that you're trying to acquire or you want, and you don't have it written down, you have now reduced the chances of you getting it by 80%. Because it's a principle of success. It's in your Bible. You see, the Bible is full of all the principles you need. It tells you everything you need to. So here it is. There's a scripture. This scripture says, write the vision and make it plain, so that he who reads it will run to it. And even though it tarry means take a while, and even though it tarry, wait for it, for surely it will come at an appointed time. That's a fact. It's not a theory, it's a fact. I dare you to go home and write down everything you want on paper. Read it every morning and every night. I dare you. In 1 year, I want you to pull that paper off and put a check mark by everything you've accumulated on that list. You'll be stunned. You will be absolutely stunned. It don't matter if you don't believe in it. It don't matter if you've ever heard of it. It don't matter if you think it's hocus pocus. I dare you to try it. This ain't Steve. This in your Bible. It's in the same one you got. It ain't in the rich people's Bible. It's in yours, man. If you do that one simple thing, you obey that one law he created, it changes your life forever. How you think rich people get where they at? How you think I got here? You think I'm smarter than you? Cause I'm not. I ain't got no education. You think what? You think what? Cause I done flunked out everything I've ever been in. I've lost more times than all of you. I come out the dirt. I lived in my car for 3 years. I've been in a car for 3 years. You ain't done that one. You ain't been in jail. You ain't been locked up. You ain't been shot. You ain't, what else? Let me go to you. You probably ain't on your third marriage. You probably ain't lost everything you ever owned twice. Yeah, I'm just saying you could have, but you probably ain't. So how did I get here? Because I learned the principles of success. I just started writing stuff down. That's how I got here. I'm not smarter than you. God don't love me more than he loves you. I'm the same child of God you are. But what I got though, I got a lot of common sense. I figured since I wasn't smart in school, and I figured since I ain't had no money, I said, well, I got to get rich some kind of way. Maybe if I ask God, could I be rich? See, most people don't have what they want because they ain't never asked God for it. If you've been trying to figure it out yourself, that's probably it. I just messed around and asked him, could I be rich? Because guess what? I was tired of being poor. I was homeless. How much more poor I need to be? Let me try rich. I'm tired. Poor was wearing me out. I don't know how you handling it, but it was exhausting for me. Wrote it down. You don't have to believe me, but here's the deal. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you're gonna keep getting what you've been getting. If I just told you a different way to go about it, you don't need no money. I just gave you some scriptures you could try and some principles. If somebody who had come from the bottom and got to this position I'm in told me that this is the way I would try it, if I was you, I would try that. Let me show you this. We all live inside a bubble, right? This is our world. We go to church here, we work over here, we go get our coffee over here, we go to this park over here, we usually go over here to, hang out with friends. This is our favorite club. This is our world. This is our favorite spot on the beach. We all live in this bubble. What you gotta do to get the life that God wants you to have, you gotta put more air in your bubble. You got to blow your bubble up. Expand yourself. Take yourself out your comfort zone. Do not live in your bubble. Put some more air in your bubble. If you stay in your comfort zone, that's where you will fail. You will fail in your comfort zone. Success is not a comfortable procedure. It is a very uncomfortable thing to attempt. So you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful. Start putting some pressure on. Put some pressure on yourself. Get out here and get about it. Look, I'd love to sugarcoat this thing for you. I'd love to tell you, look, you can go out here and get rich, do a couple of things. That ain't happening. You got to get real doggish. You got to get downright funky if you want to make it. Now, like I was telling you before, if you want to be ordinary, you ain't even got to listen to me. Just go on about your business. If you think ordinary's cool, ain't no problem. It's some really, really wonderful ordinary people. But if you are sitting in this room and you have extraordinary aspirations, then you're gonna have to do extra. You put extra on top of ordinary and you come up with extraordinary. It's no other way. I'm sorry, but here's the fact. All of you have extraordinary capabilities, all of you. You have to decide if you are willing to do the things to put you in that category. Rich people don't sleep 8 hours a day. That's a third of your life. It ain't but 24 hours in a day. You cannot be asleep 8 hours a day. You can't live in LA and wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. The stock market been open 2 hours. They already making decisions about your life and your ass was asleep. The Bible says, he who loves to sleep and the folding of hands, poverty will set upon you like a thief in the night. He who loves to sleep and the folding of hands, poverty will set upon you like a thief in the night. I'm gonna ask you one question, I'm gonna go. How many of you in here know somebody who loves to sleep? Who knows somebody that loves to sleep? Let me ask you something. Ain't they poor?